Here we go. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
My name's Rachel. I'm excited to share with you my story over the last 9 years or so, which is how I've grown into the ever becoming more authentic version of myself. So this is me when I was 18. I had just graduated from East Troy High School, which is a small town about 30 minutes from here. And I was excited to go learn how to be an engineer. I had built up some skills doing FIRST Robotics, which is a competitive robotics program for K-12 students. And I was excited to see what I could do at WISL. I was also excited to reinvent myself. As most 18-year-olds are, I couldn't wait to get out of my parents' house and see what opportunities awaited me in Milwaukee. I was confident that calculus couldn't get that much harder. When I first got to MSOE, I was so excited about my new life. I was studying mechanical engineering, I was making new friends, and on my first week on campus, I joined the rowing team. And I didn't know what rowing was until that previous summer when I was watching it in the Olympics. But when I showed up to campus, my friends and I found out that there actually was not a women's rowing program here. So we started one. At the same time, I started working for our STEM department, which those of you who are familiar with MSOE, it's one of the greatest programs that I think MSOE has to offer the community. And I was working in Milwaukee Public School System. I was working with middle school students on the north and south side, teaching them the competitive robotics that I was able to do when I was in high school and middle school. I always describe the first 6 months at MSOE as the most transformative of my life. And part of that was forming new friendships, finding out that calculus was a lot harder, and also learning about my privilege for the very first time. Working in schools on the north and south side introduced me to students whose life experience was a lot different than mine. And it gave me the opportunity to understand how lucky I was to be able to have the experience to do competitive robotics, to take AP classes, and to have a support system that allowed me to go to college in the first place. I didn't understand why these opportunities weren't available to everyone, so I started to educate myself. And that's what really sparked my passion for equity in STEM education that kind of carries me through to where I am today. As I progressed through college, I was settling into my routine as a student athlete. I did several internships at HUSCO where I now work, and it was really great to be able to connect what I was learning in school with what I was learning at work. I increased my community involvement. I got as involved as I could in the Milwaukee community, doing a lot of volunteering inside of MSOE and outside MSOE. I was one of the inaugural CREATE Student Fellows, and I also created STEM to Stern, partnering with the Milwaukee Rowing Club when I was a student at MSOE, where we brought students from the schools that I was working in to campus to learn how to do competitive robotics, and also to the boathouse to learn how to row. It was later in college that I was first faced with imposter syndrome, and that's something that has continued to be present in my everyday life. Both on and off the water, I felt like I was faking it, and I felt like I was the only one who was struggling to understand who I was and was questioning the decisions that I was making. School was a really big undertaking. I had a lot going on, and time management was a learned skill. School was more of a struggle than I had anticipated, and it was really challenging for me to understand why I was struggling when it felt like none of my peers were. The more involved I got with the community and the more students I was able to interact with, I really learned the power of listening to understand instead of listening for my turn to speak. And I was able to form strong connection with students and understand the lived experience that they had that was different than my own. And because of that, I was able to understand that these students just wanted someone to listen to, and I wanted to be an advocate for them. When I graduated from college, I adopted a cat, and I focused on my relationships. At the same time, we decided to turn STEM to Stern into a national nonprofit, quickly expanding to 5 clubs outside of Milwaukee within that first year. This was a season of a lot of change for all of us. I graduated amidst a global pandemic, and I was really questioning a lot that was going on with the world, and the social justice movements that were happening in this country made me question my career path. Whether or not engineering was where I could make the most impact, or whether I should refocus my efforts somewhere else. I was able to slow down my life and really understand where I wanted to go. And then I moved to St. Louis, and I took a job with Eaton Corporation in their leadership development program. I was making new friends while trying to maintain my old friendships, and STEM to STERN was growing at a rapid rate. By the end of the first year, we had over 15 clubs. By the end of the second, we had over 20. I was managing the STEM curriculum for all these programs and working with the leaders at each of those clubs on a regular basis.
Okay.
This was where I started to lean on some of the servant leadership principles that I learned at MSOE. When you're working with leaders in different communities, you quickly understand that the resources available in every community is different. We couldn't use the exact same model that we used in Milwaukee, in Detroit, or in Trenton, New Jersey. So I had to get down with each of the leaders in each of the programs that we were working with and understand their communities, their students, and their needs. It was important to me that I wanted to be the foundation for each of these new organizations and understand what was happening with all of the students in these new communities. I wanted to be a support system as well as a supervisor. On the professional side, at work, I was really struggling to understand a new manufacturing environment. In most rooms, I was the only woman, and I was the youngest. The imposter syndrome came back in a big way. I thought things would get easier after college, and I could not understand why they didn't. I was missing my life in Milwaukee, I was struggling to navigate in a new city, and I was trying to understand a lifestyle post-college. After a few years, it was time for a change. I moved back to Wisconsin, returned to my job at Cusco, because I was looking for a smaller company that had a culture that I felt I could succeed in and valued my skills. I got re-involved in the robotics community, continued to expand my volunteerness, spending most of my winter weekends refereeing for high school robotics competitions. And I got back into coaching rowing. Connecting with the middle school students helped invigorate me for the work that I was doing on a national scale and really understand the impact that I was able to have on these students. Navigating this was another big change for me, but I was finally starting to settle into what felt like some new confidence. My sister was moving, and I was struggling to understand that, but at the same time, I was reconnecting with friends here in Milwaukee. I was also able to become more of a leader in the STEM to STERN space, expanding to 23 clubs, and starting to take on additional leadership responsibilities on top of my day job as an engineer. In 2023, I became the executive director of STEM to STERN. I also started to expand my hobbies. I got into competitive running. And I was trying to lean into the things in my life that I felt made me the most me, like traveling, going to visit my sister in Colorado, spending time with my friends, going to concerts. Becoming the leader of a national organization was truly trial by fire. I learned that leading from the ground floor is really where I feel the most authentic. That connecting with people on an individual level and understanding what their day-to-day life looks like and the struggles that they are facing helps me feel like I could take the most weight off their shoulders and relate to their situation. Setting personal and professional goals, both at STEM to STERN, at Husco, and in running, helped me feel accomplished and helped me feel like I was finally starting to become more of myself. Making time for hobbies also really helped me shape who I am today and feel a little bit less like I was working all of the time. So here I am today. I'm 5 years into my engineering career and 2 years into my role as an executive director. And the last 2 years have been another big period of change for me. I feel that I have been able to understand what makes me most authentically me. And it's about finding what drives other people and connecting with them on those things. I once heard a quote that the people you want to surround yourself with are the ones who will speak your name in a room of opportunity. And I live every day striving to be the person that does that for the people in my life. Whether it's the students or directors of all of the rowing clubs that I work with, whether it's my coworkers, my family, or my friends, I want to be someone that people can depend on to support them and lift them up in wherever they are in their lives. I believe that authenticity will always win out, and care will always come through when you lead with the most authentic version of yourself. Thank you.